Small group. So even though we are officially recording, this really is casual. It's for you all. Really, I want you all to be as active as you want to be. I might encourage some volunteers, brave souls, but again, that's just meant to help you all and position this in your experience. So, my name's Colby. I'm the director of career education at Boston University in our Center for Career Development, and I love what I do. I actually have a background in community engagement and service. I used to advise students just like you in volunteer roles. I've served as a mentor in this program, so I really feel connected to the work. So when Morgan asked me to do this, I felt like this was the perfect combination between career development and also community engagement, which is also my background. So we're going to really talk about how to showcase that for your career, but also really making it transferable, thinking about, you all represent different majors, you're interested in different industries. And so how do you kind of really focus on that? We'll really be focusing on resumes first and foremost, but I'll touch on some other areas, such as, elevator pitches, how do you talk about yourself, interviews, how do you articulate those skills? So a couple of other career topics. So we don't need to just limit to resume, but that's predominantly what we'll focus on in our time together. Who am I? um, I've had a long journey in my life of really, really cool, exciting experiences. Predominantly in higher education is my industry. I don't know if there's any other education folks out there, but I am from Long Island, originally in New York. I went to UConn, go Huskies, if there's any UConn folks on here. And I was super involved, just like you. I was an RA. I was in my community service organization. I was really actively engaged on the campus, in the community. And then one day I found out there's this thing where I could work in a university and empowering college students and student leaders. And so I got my master's in student affairs and higher education at Miami University in Ohio. For all my Midwest friends, I worked at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, Art and Design School, and I supervised community service leaders, also clubs and activities. Then I went to Brandeis University in Massachusetts. Again, community service specialist is what I did, built relationships with community partners. And now that middle photo, this is an event called Tip or Treat at the Center for Career Development. I transitioned a few years ago to career services, and I love what I do because community engagement is all about helping people. And what a tangible way to help people when you're helping them get to where they want to go in their careers and their lives and their futures, right? And finding meaningful career paths. That just feels such a tangible way I can help people. So I absolutely love what I do in career services. And I feel like I get to transfer a lot of the things that I've done. Transferable skills is definitely a key point in today's session, to the work that I do now. And those students in that picture are actually what we call our career ambassadors. So again, they're student leaders, but from the lens of helping their peers in their career journeys. Okay, so I know Zoom has like emojis and things like that. I'm curious, like, feel free to like use one or just like pop up your hand or write in the chat. Who has already included something about their Newman Civic Fellow experience on their resume? Cool, cool. Okay, we've got a few. We've got a few. I'm looking, I'm looking. I've got some thumbs up. Great, great. Okay. That's good. That's a start. Okay, so we could talk about that. How many of you have talked about it maybe in an interview? This might be less likely. Ooh, ooh, okay, okay. This is good. I love that. Okay, so that's great. So we can maybe use that as an example. So if you haven't, right, this is the perfect opportunity to start thinking about how you might be able to integrate that into your resume, um, which is awesome. Okay, so we're gonna actually use the chat. Um, And we're gonna do a little thought shower, a little brainstorm. I just want you to throw in the chat some skills, some transferable skills, but specifically thinking about things that you've done in your service, your leadership, your civic engagement. This could be from lots of different things that you've done. I just want you to throw them in the chat. Just start writing skills that you feel like you've gained through your experiences. Okay, we've got project management. I love that. Yes, that's a really good one. Project management. Public speaking. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, relationship building, self-organization, graphic design, volunteer coordination, supervision. Oh, that's money. Imagine putting that on your resume. Supervise, mentorship, right? Teaching. Oh, these are great. These are great. These are powerful words. Delegating. Oh, interpersonal skills. Yes. Yes. And a lot of these, so I did notice collaboration. Someone put like graphic design, right? So some of your skills might be those quote unquote hard skills, right? So on a resume, you might have a skills section and you'll most likely reserve that skills section. Not everybody, but Excel sheets. Ooh, I got another hard skill. That's great. You might reserve that for your hard skills that are specifically relevant to your industry, right? So any of my research folks, you might have some of your lab skills on there, maybe your CPR, you have your CPR certification, maybe you are any of my computer science, data science folks, Java, Python, C++, right? That's super important. Those are excellent skills that you want to feature. When it comes to these, now sometimes people like to call these soft skills. I mean, how many of us have heard that term? I don't love that term because it makes it seem less than, when in reality, these skills are so important to employers. They're so important to the world of work. And when we talk about these transferable skills, which these are so good, first of all, if I were to pick up your resume, I would want to be able to see these reflected, but I wouldn't want to just read them. And so I often advise students and folks that I work with that actually, instead of putting those life skills, those enduring skills, those power skills, as I like to call them, in your skill section, prove them in your bullet points. Prove it in the content. Because actions speak louder than words. And when it comes to things like collaboration, delegating, public speaking, project management, the money is when you can make direct connections between your experiences and things that you've done to those transferable skills. And more important, the skills that are important to your industry, right? And how would you even know that? How would you know um, what's important, right? So if you're applying to things, how would you know? Throw it in the chat, right? Like, if you're like, I really want to be an engineer, or I really want to go to law school, or whatever it is, how would you know what skills are important? That's like, how would you even find that out? Or you can also just say it. You don't have to put it in the chat. Yes, star, you're a star. Yes, Morgan. Yes. So that like endless ways. I mean, research, the job description. Like if you're applying to jobs for all my seniors out there, or even if you're juniors, you're applying to internships. First of all, they tell you. I always say the job description is the cheat sheet. It's the answer key. They're telling you exactly what they're looking for. They're saying these are the things we want you to be able to do. These are the skills that we want, and it's a missed opportunity to not use that to your advantage, right? But you can't just say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to choose these and I'm just going to put them somewhere. Let me just throw it in my skill section and hope for the best. That's not what they want to see. They want to see your experience and they want you to make connections to the skills and experiences that you have and the skills that they're looking for. I love what Morgan said about talking to people in the field, informational interviews, as we like to call it, which sounds weird. It sounds like an interview. It's not an interview. It's actually a conversation where you meet with someone. People have done it with me where they say, Colby, I really like what you do. I'd love to connect, have coffee, meet on Zoom, just learn more about what you do. What's the day to day? What advice do you have for someone like me who's trying to get my foot in the door in this industry? How did you get to where you are today? What are things that you did to get there? Right? There's so much you can learn. What are the most important skills for someone who's looking to enter this industry or work at a job like yours? Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely great. LinkedIn handshake. There's such good stuff here. Um, what happens if you don't have all the skills in a job description? Oh, I love this one. This is such a good one. Now, there's some kind of statistic out there, I don't know it off the top of my head, that specifically women are less likely to apply to a job if they don't check all the boxes, if they don't 100% have everything that they have. That's not to say that men don't do that also. But women specifically, and you could probably put that to any marginalized identity, right? Where we kind of say, oh, well, I don't check all the boxes, right? I'd say use your judgment. If the job says you need 20 years of experience, right? You want to use some critical thinking, common sense skills. But what's the worst that happens, right? If you apply, like let them decide. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I didn't make up that quote, okay? But apply, always apply. Um, but yeah, I think we always count ourselves out before we can even get in. And sometimes what happens is if you're on the cusp, you know, they might be interested. Maybe you do some networking. Maybe they say, oh, send me your resume. You just never know. So always, always apply. But again, use your judgment. But like, what's the worst that happens? They say no, you know? So that's always my advice there. This is great. Oh, okay, someone asked how they got your fellowship. Right. You could be doing informational interviews. You could be helping first year students or sophomores, right? It's not just people years and years in their career that you can find this stuff out from. But so I have Campus Compact is a professional national organization. I have one also in my field called the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And we call it NACE. It's our professional association. So we have something called the career readiness competencies, and these apply to all industries across all different areas where employers were surveyed. And what are you most looking for in recent college graduates? And these were the top 8. Now, of course, you all are going to have skills and competencies that are specific to your industry, of course, right? I mentioned computer science or programming, the Python, the C++. You're going to have things that are specific to your fields. But then there's sort of these enduring skills that cross so many different areas. And so I want you to really think about if you're seeing these 8, right? Pick one that you're like, okay, I feel really strong in this, right? If you were to look at this list and say, I really feel like I have this. But when you think about that, why is that? Because how many of you, if you've ever done an interview, someone says, tell me your strengths? Like, who's been asked that? Tell me your strengths. That's a great question. You're probably going to be asked it a million times in your life. And you're like, okay, so always practice that, right? Or when you're reading a resume, you want your strengths to come through. You want your skills to come through. But if you just say, "Oh, I'm a really, really strong, communicator," or, I really know how to work on a team well. I'm an effective collaborator, and you end it there. It's the same thing as putting it in your skills section, but not telling me anything else about that. That doesn't tell me, okay, well, I don't actually know how you would communicate here. I don't actually know, like, I'm just taking your word for it, right? But if you walk me through a team-based project that you worked on from start to finish and the strategies you use to collaborate. If you're a leader of a student organization and you organize meetings and you don't just organize meetings, you're not just giving me job duties. You empower people and you delegate. I saw delegation before. Oh, the STAR method. Oh, yep. we're already ready for that. You guys are experts. That's where it happens, right? So I want you to think about, okay, and then also think about what's something on here that you're like, ooh, I don't really do this. This is not something that I have worked on, or I don't feel like I have a lot of examples, right? You're still in school. You still have time to really hone that and think about that. And it could be class projects, it could be research, it could be internships. There's so many different things that you all do. You're all so involved on your campuses. You're all leaders, right? That leadership, every single one of you have leadership. It's just how you articulate that is really important. So thinking about, okay, if there's something that you don't feel as strong in, how could you work on that skill during your time in school? Or seek out opportunities intentionally to build those. So again, that's just sort of another aspect. Okay, another way you can think of this. So when folks are preparing for interviews, for example, or thinking about what to put on a resume, I always say, let's just list it out, right? With the resume, we call that the master resume. Like, put it all down. Everybody should have a master resume. That's the copy that it's not as tailored. I know some of you might be interested in multiple industries. You might have different interests. You would have different versions of your resume, right? Because your resume isn't an overview of everything you've ever done, right? It's really tailored. So, listing those things out, what are your experiences? What are your accomplishments? Um, I always like to start there, because that's the core of everything, of your resume, of your LinkedIn. It's all about the experience. That's what really matters. And then from that list, and again, this is another way to do this. What we just did is we kind of started with the skills, but starting with those experiences and really thinking about, okay, what are those skills that I used, that I gained, that I honed? Um, then you think of that target. What is that target, right? What is that job? We talked about informational interviews, research, looking at job descriptions, like real job descriptions. And even if you're not actively applying, just like look up some jobs, see what's out there. What are they looking for? What are those skills? Do you want to go to graduate school or professional school? Um, you all are going to have to write personal statements for those graduate programs if you haven't already done that, right? Um, you might have to do interviews for those programs. You'll need resumes for those programs. So, what are those things that you're aspiring to, and what's important to that? And then connecting those dots, right? Like I said, so what are those top 3 to 5 skills that you possess that are applicable to that field, right? So sometimes I think we think, okay, well, I don't, I'm sure lots of folks on this call, maybe some of you want to do community engagement work. I hope you do. That's an excellent field. Nonprofit work, education, human services, social work. I mean, it's endless, the list of things you could work in a university setting. But some of you are like, no, I love my community engagement work. I love what I do, but I want to work in consulting, and that's totally cool. But you know what's so impressive? What you all do, because it spans so many different industries. You've got leadership, right? You've got project management. You've got partnerships and collaborations, teamwork, right? Negotiation. Like there's so many things you can pull, but you want to really think about, well, what really matters in my industry and how can I connect and really hone in on those particular skills that are really most important, that are most valuable in the industries that I'm looking for. So it's kind of moving from experience to skill. And I think that can be a really powerful exercise for interview prep. I like to prepare stories because I do. I always have when I'm prepping for an interview, I have a cheat sheet, right? Like I have a Word doc and I'm practicing. I've got sample questions that might come up. Power of AI, it can give you sample questions in your industries. Um, but I prepare stories because if I get asked a question, right, like how do you tell me about a time that you dealt with conflict, or tell me about a time you took leadership on a project, or you had to run a program, from start to finish. um, I have stories, and if I get caught off guard because, oh, I didn't prepare that question, I can sort of start to plug and play, right? Like I've already prepped my examples. I've already prepped stories, real concrete examples, because again, actions speak louder than words. And I'm not saying for every question, or sometimes with resumes, we'll talk about this in a second of like how to show impact. You're not gonna be able to do the star method for every question, right? Um, but where it really counts. And again, the classic, I like to give the strengths example, or what skills would you bring to this position? Use as an opportunity to not just say it, but show it, prove it, with those examples. Yeah. I'm curious if anyone, and again, it's okay if you're not comfortable, but if anyone would be willing to kind of volunteer kind of a practice run of this. So some of you said you've already put this on your resume. I'm curious if anyone would be interested, again, workshopping this with me for a minute, and if not, no pressure. But anyone interested in trying? Okay, Marcos, go for it. All right. Awesome. Awesome. You're, yeah, round of applause. We love it. We love it. Okay. Yes, my new best friend, Marcos. Welcome. Uh, Marcos. Okay. Give me something, just give me one thing that you've done, like an accomplishment, an experience that you're just like so proud of. Give me one.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so on my campus, I'm making a newsletter to promote volunteer events within
Ooh,
the DFW Metroplex.
love that. You're making a newsletter promoting volunteer events. This is great. This is great. Excellent. Tell me, Marcos, what are some of your interests post graduation?
So my interest post-graduation, it will be in tech.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at a career in possibly computer vision.
Mm-hmm.
Computer vision, that's looking at like you're looking at AI,
Mm-hmm.
self-driving cars. Along with that, I kind of want to be very confident in myself and confident in my leadership skills.
I love that. Okay. So if you were to connect some of the work that you're doing, right, it could be the newsletter or other kind of things that connected
hmm
to that interest, how might you do that, right? How might you talk about that in a resume or an interview? What skills might you hone in from that example that you just gave?
So one of the big skills I know for tech is communication.
Mm-hmm.
Usually everyone can do the job, but a big part of tech is being able to communicate. So
Yes.
in my newsletter, one of the biggest things I have to learn how to do is communicate
Yes.
because stuff like that doesn't just appear out of thin air.
Yeah.
The other thing I would also probably look at is professionalism and then
Yeah.
critical thinking. There have been like situations working on the newsletter where I've been like, okay, how do I get around this? There's not like a set in stone solution. So I have to kind of think and kind of try to figure it out.
I love that. Marcos, that was excellent, excellent work. And I love what you said too about, right, like a lot of times in tech industry, a lot of folks have the hard skills, right? And it's
Mhm.
hard to stand out when everyone kind of is listing the same types of skills on their resume. Maybe they have similar projects, right? But when you're able to hone in those communication skills, right? All those other things that you talked about, that can help you stand out, right? Because they're not just looking for someone who could do the job. They're looking for a good colleague and someone who can work on a team and collaborate, right? So how are you going to bring those skills to the projects that they're going to have you do in those organizations? So, Marcos, that was great. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, so that's a great example of how you might do that. So resume, again, I think sometimes folks think and assume this is a laundry list. This is everything I've ever done. And it's not. It really is your brand, it's your marketing tool. So, and if that's how you've been thinking about a resume, that's fine. Um, but I want to kind of reset that. Is anyone interested in like academia or research by chance? By hands, academia, like PhD, research. Okay. Oh, potentially. Okay. Yeah, so do you all know what a CV is? Potentially. Yes. Okay. You're like, yes. Okay. So I'm focusing a little bit more on resume, but CV is totally valid and totally cool. Resumes are usually like 1 to 2 pages, depending on the industry. Some industries are like 1 page or bust. Other industries, like my industry, nonprofits, education, a little bit more friendly to a 2 page resume. Um, CVs are longer. It could be 3 pages, 5 pages. It might have research and projects and coursework. Um, yeah, that's totally valid. It still applies, right? Like sometimes with the CVs, folks are like, I could just include everything ever. You can, but you still want to be thoughtful of, well, what are you applying to? If it's a research role, like I should be able to tell from your CV research, right? And something I love to talk to about resumes with branding, so things need to be in date chronological order within a header. And when I say header, you all know what I mean, right? Like education's a header, experience is a header. Um, and I actually don't like the experience header. I'm like, say something like, what is it? Is it internship experience? Is it project experience? Is it marketing experience, right? Um, theme it. They're themes. Right. So all my tech folks or my programming folks, people like to have project experience because they want to highlight some of their projects that they've done, related to computer programming. it's up to you. There's no one rule about what sections to include. It's your brand. It's your right. If you're someone who really wants to work in community engagement, maybe you will have a volunteer and leadership experience header, right? Really tailoring it and curating it. And so, sure, things need to be in date chronological order within a header, but headers can live wherever you want them to. So that's the magic, that's the secret. So say you're like, "Oh, I did this. This is more relevant to the specific positions I'm applying to, but I did it a little bit a while ago." Um, if you have a header, say you're like, "I'm really interested in marketing, graphic design roles," that's specific to that, right? That's how you can push something to the top because people read top to bottom, left to right. So you want the things that are most important, most relevant, as close to the top of your resume as possible, and left. That's why we put things like dates to the right because like you have to have a date. You need to have dates. But you want them to see your experiences first, your strong action verbs, right? People read top to bottom, left to right. So sometimes I'll have two experience headers. I might have a relevant experience, right? Or I might theme it. I think I have done, community engagement experience, higher education experience. I've themed it. And then I might have additional work experience. I might have another header to address some of those experiences that have transferable skills, but it's not the first thing that I want them to see because again, I'm branding it, I'm theming it for them. Um, and we talk about applicant tracking systems in the world of AI, that's even more prevalent. I have so many issues with it because employers still don't really get it. Like they're still figuring it out. They don't know how to work with it with applications. They're getting over inundated. And then on their end, right, they're using like AI tools to scan. But that's where the keywords really come in handy, right? Using those industry terms, those keywords. The job description is the answer key. It's a cheat sheet. So using it to your advantage and tailoring your language a little bit, particularly for positions that you're really excited about. And again, the work that you're doing, it's not an add-on, it's not an extra. There's tangible skills, leadership, problem solving, impact that you can pull from these types of experiences. Um, so that's really key. And I think really, again, highlighting the skills, sometimes people are like, "Oh, can I put a relevant like coursework section in my education header?" Sure, you can, but don't list every course you've ever taken. Oh my goodness. Pick the courses that are most relevant to the things that you're interested in, to the things that you're applying to. Again, matching the language of the posting, but using your experiences, the things that you've done. You can't make that stuff up. It's real. It's real things that you've done. You're just connecting those things. And again, you might retitle your sections a bit. So it's again, you have that master resume that everybody should have that's long because you get to track things. You don't want to forget everything you've done. And then you have your tailored resumes that you use. Um, and again, this is just an example. We're not going to go in depth with this, but how you might do this. I'll do it on Google Docs. I'm highlighting. I mean, I'm really analyzing positions. And sometimes folks will ask me, "Well, Colby, you want me to spend hours on every application?" No, no, you don't have time for that, right? But definitely for the jobs that you really, really want, you might choose to spend a little extra time. And I would say once you do this once, for especially if you're applying to a lot of the same things, it gets easier because if you're applying to a lot of the same things, it's just minor tweaks, right? Or honestly, probably a lot of the same industry lingo or skills are probably going to be similar. If you are applying to different industries or completely different areas, that's where you might have multiple versions. But again, um, really thinking about, okay, they're telling me, leadership's important, collaboration, fundraising. Oh, I can see that, problem solving, communication skills are important. Okay, well, now I'm going to think about not just, well, yeah, I have that, but I'm going to make sure whether it's in my cover letter, in my resume, in interviews, I'm going to make sure, I use that language, right? So if they're saying, um, you know, manage multiple timelines, right? Or if you notice they say something multiple times, like it just shows up a lot. It could be the smallest tweaks, right? Your action verb that you start your bullet point with. You could adjust that action verb to kind of be connected to the way the lingo that they're using, right? And it's through the lens of experience that you have, but you're just using the language that they're using, recognizing that it's important because it's showing up in the job description, right? So you might take note of multitasking or time management. Oh, they used execute twice. So maybe one of my bullet points is gonna start with execute, right? It's like little things like that. And again, not for every position, but it can be really powerful, especially if there's specific things they're looking for. Um, I love this equation. I think it's really powerful with bullet points. You're not going to be able to do this for every single bullet point, but I really want to stress to you all as much as I can the difference between a bullet point that reads as a job duty that I could just find in a job description and an accomplishment. You want as many of your bullet points as possible to read as accomplishments, as much as you can, right? What was your unique contribution? What impact did you have on the organization, on the community, on the whatever it may be, the company? Um, really framing as accomplishments. And that doesn't mean that you can't have more generic bullet points. You only have so much space on the resume. You can't do this for every bullet point, but for the ones that really count, the ones that you're really proud of, and it can be really, really powerful. So I like to think of it as like what, how, why, right? Or another way to think of it is it skill, context, result because every bullet point should start with a strong action verb. And you might see one of my homework assignments for you all is like go through your resume, look at your action verbs. Sometimes I'll see helped and there's nothing wrong with helped or assisted or right. And you're almost like not owning your role in it. It's okay if you did something in collaboration with someone, right? But another way you could do that is say, developed newsletter content in collaboration with team of 5, right? Like instead of starting with, helped people do this, right? Like you're owning your role. You want that strong action developed, analyzed, organized, executed, right? Um, we have a list I'm happy to drop in the chat before we wrap up a laundry list of strong action verbs on our website. Feel free to use it. Also AI. Um, and then don't just say what you did. How did you do it? Give context, right? Numbers are always great. With quantities, it could be number of people on a team, number of projects, number of presentations, number of events. Um, if you work, say you work with a group of kids, number of kids in the class, like whatever it is, like budgets, if you've worked with budgets, anytime you can put in quantities, obviously it doesn't have to be for every bullet point, but giving specifics, giving details, don't leave me hanging. I really want to know what you did and what was the result or why did you do it? Right. And it doesn't have to be like a more quantitative result could be, manage social media accounts, including TikTok and Instagram, developing creative content, resulting in a 30% increase in engagement. Like that's an example of a result that's a little bit more quantitative, but it could be qualitative, right? It could be, creating a welcoming environment in the classroom, or really thinking about what was your impact, what was the value that you added, or another way is to think. Did X by using Y to achieve Z. Um, so another, homework assignment, going through your bullet points and thinking, okay, how am I doing this? And are any of my bullet points showing impact or showing why I did it or showing result? Yeah. I would always say, with this, try to keep your bullet points to no more than 2 lines of real estate. I call it real estate, especially if you have a one-page resume. If you notice you're like you go over by 1 line, but it's like one word, then make that a 1 line bullet point. I'm serious, that's precious real estate. It's hard to always tweak. It's like, how do I get this down by one word? But if you're going to use 2 lines, use the 2 lines. I think 3 lines is where you start for one bullet point is where you start to get a little bit too long. Um, but again, really thinking about that, verb tensive, being consistent in your formatting and things like that is really important. The numbers are always great, percentages, money, numbers. Um, and sometimes I'll see in resumes it's like I did or we did. No, forget that. Just write, developed newsletter content, da 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 da. Um, these are just some examples, again, of strong action verbs. There's so many out there that you can use, especially if you think about what's relevant to your industry. That's really powerful. Okay, so we have an example. I've got a bullet point right here. Responsible for after-school activities for international elementary school children. Okay, how might I improve that? Chat, feel free to use chat, call it out. What, and you don't have to change the whole bullet point, but what might you change if you had to change like one or two things? It's a great bullet point. Maybe one of you has this bullet point. Responsible to manage. Oh, yes, Marcos. Best friend Marcos. How many children? Yes, yes, quantities. You all, you're listening, you're paying attention. Yes, these are so good. Yeah. There's not responsible for is fine, but do you see how that kind of sounds like a job duty and it's not really owning that accomplishment, really, what they really contributed. So, oh, we got more. Yep, oversaw, conducted. Yeah, there's no rules here. Here I used developed. That's cool. Maybe um oversaw was showing up in the job description a lot, right? Like whatever it is, supervise, right? Like really understanding what's important for the job. But this is so much more specific, right? I now know that they created curriculum, they have organization skills, they organize two after school activities. It's so much more specific. We've got the number of students, and then there's a reason, right? There's a result, there's an impact. I did this to aid in English speaking skills development and community. What about I think I gave you one of them, but what are some skills that jump out from this bullet point? Throw them in the chat. Just by reading this one bullet point, what can I assume about this person and their skills? What are their skills? Program development, yes. Equity and inclusion, absolutely. Can work with diverse community members, absolutely. Curriculum building, strong teaching experience, creativity, yes. Community building, um, so many things. They organization skills, supervision, leadership, um, facilitation. I mean, you can just think of so many different things that this person's skilled at. So it's the power of those descriptors. And these are just other examples, again, that, bullet points that can read as accomplishments, right? I developed innovative strategies. I exceeded quotas. I created new ideas. I brought something new to the table that was successfully adopted by others. I demonstrated effective leadership by, that's really powerful. So make this your power year because you know what's so hard and imposter syndrome's so real. And it doesn't go away, right? When you're a student, I definitely had it. I still have it in my career. I'm a director now, and yet here we are, still always having that voice in the back of your head. I before interviews, I have to hype myself up. I have to be like, "You're awesome, you're great." Like I have to because it's so hard. But if you don't believe in yourself, how will they? So I'm probably coming across so confident right now, but like that's that that's I didn't come out of the womb like that. Like I've had to work on that and really build my self-confidence. So somebody said, building their confidence, like I love that. That's what it is. And you got to own it in your resume, like really brag because you guys are awesome. Anyone would be lucky to hire you. I mean, you're like the top leaders in the country. I mean, come on, like literally, you are. This program, like when you talk about this, was selected, highly competitive presidential nomination. Like this is insane. Like you guys are like top of the top in the country, right? And that should be showcased in your resume, brag about it in your interviews. Um, Okay, I'm being thoughtful of time. I was going to do this, but my homework assignment to you all is to really think, um, go through your resume and really consider where are my strong action verbs? If I don't have strong action verbs, maybe plugging some of those to be more of that strong action verb. And am I showing that result, that impact? That's really what's so important. Do I have numbers? Do I have descriptors? Um, Morgan wanted me to touch a little bit on other aspects of career development. Your resume is what gets you in the door, right? But in this day and age, it's often not enough. Like sometimes I'll be in career coaching appointments with students and they'll say, Colby, I applied to 100 jobs. I've heard nothing, right? And I like to talk about the traditional job search where you're just mass applying versus the proactive search. And some of that is that tailoring, like really taking time to make your materials not generic. I'm a hiring manager. I interview people. I know like what I look for, and I really want people to care, and take the time. But the networking is huge. It's huge. You all are still in school. Go to those career fairs, go to networking events, meet with alumni, have informational interviews. It's hard. And it's so tough because networking is a long game. And you won't always have a conversation. That's not always going to lead to something, and that's really hard. But you don't want these conversations to be transactional. You never want to meet with someone and say, like, do you have a job for me? Right? You're seeking advice. You're building a relationship, right? You wouldn't just come up to a friend and be like, "Hey, do you have this for me?" Like, whoa. You know, you want to build trust with somebody. Um, I don't like the term elevator pitch. I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because it sounds like you're just talking at a wall. Like you're in an elevator and you're like, hello, my name is Colby and I'm really skilled at XYZ. And like, whoa, there's a human. Like, I think we forget sometimes that like elevator pitches and networking, um, I feel like you can always get some info or advice from networking that's beneficial. Yes. Yes, you can always learn something, right? If you're sure in the back of your mind, you're like, I really need a job or I need an internship. But if you really come at it to what Star is saying and you think, no matter what, I'm always going to get something out of this, even if it's advice. Or I might be able to say, hey, do you have anyone else in your network that you might be able to connect me with? Or, there's so many ways that you can, or just learn, like, right? It's not just about getting from point A to point B. You might get more insight into a career path, right? So I love that, Star. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, Showcase, yeah, your skills, right? Share your unique qualities, tell your story. Essentially, your elevator pitch is your why. That classic tell me about yourself question that you're going to get in every interview you're ever in. That's essentially an elevator pitch, right? You want your why to come through. Why this job? Like, why are you here? And that's really important. If you're meeting someone at a career fair, right, context matters, right? So sometimes elevator pitch sounds like, well, I'm just gonna give the same pitch to every single person. It's like, no, there's a person there. You might ask them questions, you might ask their name, right? Like, so sometimes I don't like that context of I'm just gonna talk at a wall. No, you're having a conversation with somebody. Um, I do think it takes practice, especially the tell me about yourself question in an interview. Practice it. Practice it if you need to record yourself because it shouldn't go on for 5 minutes. It really shouldn't. You know, 2 minutes, tops, I'd say, for that question. But and it's okay. That's like flexible, right? Like it can go a little longer. I'm the classic long-winded person as I go on and on and on. I'm talkative. Um, but you really want to be enthusiastic, right? You really want your why to come through. Reason, like why, like what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Like what is exciting about this job or this opportunity? Um, something about you. What are your skills? What are your experiences? And what's that call to action, right? Or if it's in the interview context, yeah, why are you excited to be here? But again, it's connecting your story, your skills, right? Like, how did you get here? I really, I've been majoring in urban community studies. I'm really passionate about urban planning. I did a fellowship with community and regional planners in my community, and it made me realize, like, wow, through that work of getting youth excited about actively being involved in decision making and policy in their community, I realized this is important work. And I was able to bring my skills in facilitation, public speaking, teamwork, collaboration, whatever it may be to this work. And when I saw this opportunity and the work that you all are doing, right, and I've done my research, I know what they're about. I don't have to ask them what the job is because I know what it is. I really felt like I could apply those skills here and I could see myself really adding value to this organization, right? It's like it's connecting the dots for people. And again, elevator pitch, that's the context of an interview. It might be different if you meet someone at a career fair, say, you want to ask them, their name, you want to say, hi, it's so nice to meet you. This is, it's what I like to say is responsive questions. So another way to talk about elevator pitches is professional introductions and conversations, because that's what it is. It's a professional introduction, but it's a conversation, right? There's somebody there. If it's at the context, say, of a career fair, you might say, oh, what skills do you think a new hire should really have to stand out or be successful in your company? Or what's something really cool? What's a really cool project or initiative an entry level professional in your organization has initiated? You know, what do you like about working for your organization? Maybe you've done your research and you have some really informed questions to impress them, right? You're not just talking at a wall, you're engaging with someone and having a conversation. And the other thing I like to say about networking is I think there's this awkwardness to it. It's really hard. It's uncomfortable. Like I don't like it. It's really hard, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And I think always remind yourself what you have to offer because every one of you do, right? You all have something to offer in a conversation, to a relationship, to an organization. If for all my introverts out there, when in doubt, ask questions. Don't underestimate the power of a good question. If you're just genuinely curious about someone, that will shine through. And don't underestimate the power of the name. Like, how many times do you guys hear a name and then you immediately forget it, right? Like, we've all done it. We've all done it. Names are powerful, right? When I say Morgan's name, right? Like Morgan, like that like feels good. Like, right? When people say your name, I'm really intentional and I actually use it as a strategy to remember the name. And then it's kind of my awkwardness. I'm like, Morgan, Morgan, Morgan. And I might say to Morgan, sorry, I just want to make sure I don't forget your name. I'm really so excited to meet you. And I'm just being myself. I'm being genuine. I'm not being anyone else. I'm being Colby. And I'm a little quirky. And I did theater growing up, right? And I swing dance. Like, I'm weird, right? I'm going to be my true self. I'll be professional, but I'm going to be myself. And I'm going to ask Morgan a lot of questions because I'm nervous, but I really want Morgan to know that I'm excited and I want to learn about Morgan. I want to learn about Campus Compact, right? So that's really, really key. Obviously, with interviews, we talked about this. Do your homework. Actions speak louder than words. Prep your stories, right? Um, Prepare good questions. Don't underestimate the power of a good question. All of that good stuff is really, really important. We talked about STAR. If you didn't know what that was, situation, task, action, result. But let me tell you something. This is great for a behavioral question. The money is an action and result. If you tell me about a time you navigated a conflict, but then you don't tell me the action that you took, and you don't even tell me what happened, right? Like that is the most important thing in STAR, right? I don't want to just know, what happened, right? Okay, can you tell me about a time you had to complete a task under a tight deadline? This person is walking me through it, right? They're saying an employee left days before the project was due. I had to take it over. I only had a few days notice. But guess what I did, right? That's the context. I spent extra time on research. I created a task force. I delegated. And I'm not going to end it there. I want you to know the resolution, right? We completed the assignment. Data spare, client was happy, contracted us for another project, right? So that's all it is. It's just that action and result is really key. Um, we were going to do some practice, but again, I'm like notoriously, want to do all the things. So I'm going to leave space for questions. Um, I think again, I really want you all to think about um, highlighting those skills, letting your stories speak volumes. Um, I love this visual. It's like what people think success looks like, what it really looks like. This is not a linear path. Some of you might take gap years, some of you might do other things, and like that is all okay. And I think we love in job searching and grad school and all this stuff, we love to play the comparison game, and that's just not fair because there's only one Jonathan, right? Like there's only one Medina. Like you all are on different paths, you're all on different journeys. And so my biggest advice to you is try not to compare yourself to others. You know, it's your journey. So questions, we've got 6 minutes. Ooh, was this helpful? Hopefully. Ooh, and also drop in the chat. This is really great from our website. We've got like sample resumes. Something I really love about this too is we have like a laundry list of strong action verbs, if that's helpful to you, with different categories based on, is it teamwork? Is it initiative? Communication? Like, what is it? Analysis? Like, what are you trying to convey? And then even further is how do if I want to convey communication or I want to convey professionalism, these are the career readiness competencies that I showed you earlier from NACE. It gives you sample bullet points of how you might go about showing a skill in those. So I really like this link, but okay. Not a question, but this is very helpful. That's great. List of adjectives, nouns we can use. We're not repeating the same one. Oh, I just gave you that. I didn't even see that. I'm like psychic. Okay. What would you recommend for students, especially seniors who are struggling to imagine the next step? What's next? It's hard to think about next steps. Future is unclear. Balance staying in the moment, enjoying my community work. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I think try not to get into that analysis paralysis phase. I think sometimes we feel really stuck. And the hard part is you're full-time students and job searching is a full-time job. I've been there. I did go on to my master's right away. So my senior year, I was hustling with my applications, getting my recommendations together, my personal statements. So I was doing that was a full-time job while I was in senior year. I had to fly for like interview weekends. Like it was my first time flying by myself as like a senior. I'm in the airport, like writing papers for like my English class. Like, what is happening? And then my job search was in my master's program, and master's program did not slow down. I had an assistantship 20 hours a week. That was definitely more than 20 hours a week. So it's really hard. I think this is where informational interviews can be really powerful. If you're really truly feeling lost, like I have no idea what I want to do. Um, Sometimes meeting with career coaches can be really helpful, like helping you kind of narrow down um, what your interests are. Research can be really helpful. I would say experience is helpful. Like anytime you can, job shadow or, do an internship but senior year, that's harder, obviously. But don't get stuck in that analysis paralysis. Just really like nothing is a waste of time. Like networking is never a waste of time. Getting applications out there is never a waste of time. Like even if you're feeling a little stuck, just putting something out there. And I always say stay organized. Like if you are doing a job search or a graduate, like you need to have some kind of Google spreadsheet, like Excel, like something to track what you're doing. Because when you're feeling overwhelmed, having things on paper of like, okay, these are the places that I want to target. This is where I've applied, like can kind of help take it from here to reality. So I just say always just get started, make some goals for yourself. Like again, if the goal is literally just like I want to have, at least, two networking conversations within the next, few months, that's a good goal to have. Or I want to meet with a career coach to talk about this. Like make goals for yourself that feel like smart goals that feel actually achievable. Sources you'd recommend to use for CV and cover letter building. Yeah, those are actually at the same, not that exact link, but if you just go to this link, um, we have a CV section and also a cover letter section. A lot of the same things I said about other things apply to cover letters. That cover letter, like you should be taking skills that they said they want in the job description, pulling those into your cover letter and then using direct experiences that highlight that skill that they're looking for. And I always in my cover letter, I never leave them guessing. I always connect it back. And I say the thing like this skill, I talk about a specific thing that I did, and then my last sentence is always like and this applies perfectly to, like I always, or aligns, like I never leave them guessing. Even in my conclusion, I don't just use the, please email me. It's precious real estate. I'm always like, and remember, I'm a great fit. And in a cover letter, I should know why you want this job. Like for sure, I need to know why this job and why you're a good fit. Like what would you bring and contribute through the lens of those skills and experiences that you have. That's really it. Like I mean, I know I'm oversimplifying it. Feel free to use the link I gave you. But that's the cover letter at the end of the day. Sometimes people even like put the wrong job in there. I'm like, oh no. Uh, so, these are good questions. Anything else? Well, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, hashtag networking. I'm pretty easy to find. Some redhead, you'll know, with glasses. There's not that many Colbys out there. I don't know. CVs are more flex. It could be 3 pages, 5 pages, more. It's more flex. It really is. Um, I wouldn't have 10 pages. Don't do that. How about that? Don't have a 10-page CV. 3 to 5 is nice. Thanks all. You've been great. It's 9 o'clock my time. Might be different time for you, but good luck with everything. If you're in the Midwest stay warm.
Cool,
Great.
Beatrice. Thank you so much for your time and coming here and sharing your wisdom with some of our Newman Civic Fellows. Like always, guys, I'm going to share this out and it'll also be available on the website along with these links. I'm going to add those too for you all to be able to check out at your leisure. I want to be respectful of your time. And also remind you all that there is an email in your inbox if you are a mini grant recipient with some follow-up steps for you all.
Mhm.
So I am so grateful that you all came and hopefully got to ask a lot of your questions. And thank you again, Kobe. I will go ahead and let you all go and get back to the rest of your evenings.
Thanks, everyone. You've been
Thank
lovely.
you.